This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, March the 30th, 1925, almost 100 years ago, the Victoria Cougars won the Stanley Cup. Did I hear you say Victoria won the Stanley Cup? Yeah, you heard me. They're not an NHL team. What the heck? Did they ever go to the NHL? Well, that, Mr. Doubter, is actually a good point. However, you got to remember, this is almost 100 years ago. The history of the NHL has changed so much. And no, Victoria was never in the NHL. That's the NHL winning the Stanley Cup. Well, let's get to the point. The point here, Mr. Doubter, is that between 1893 and 1926, the Stanley Cup was part of a challenge cup. But when the NHL formed in 1917, they decided to have the NHL champion face whoever was the best team from the West. The Western Canadian champion and the Pacific Coast champion would fight in a series of their own. The winner of that series would play the NHL champion for the right to win the Stanley Cup. So let's talk about the Victoria Cougars. They were founded in 1911. They were the first PCHA team, the Pacific Coast Hockey Association team. They actually defeated the Stanley Cup champion Quebec Bulldogs in an exhibition series, meaning they did not have the right to the Stanley Cup. It was an exhibition. They would challenge the Toronto Blue Shirts, the predecessor to the Arena/St. Pat's/Leafs, for the Cup the following year, but lost. In 1916, the team had to move to Spokane, Washington, because the arena was commandeered by the Canadian military. World War I happened. A new team was formed in 1918, and basically, after the Portland Rosebuds team had to fold, Victoria got their players. So they were the aristocrats. But by 1922, they decided to be the Victoria Cougars. Led by the famous coach Lester Patrick, the Cougars would win the Stanley Cup in 1925 against the Montreal Canadiens of the NHL. The Cougars were the last non-NHL team to hoist the Stanley Cup before the NHL got control of the Stanley Cup in 1926 after the Hockey League dissolved. And the Cougars ended up being the last West Coast team, either in Canada or the United States, to win the title till Anaheim in 2007. So that took 8 decades, pardon. They wanted to repeat as champions, but the Montreal Maroons took them down in the 1926 Cup final. Of course, the league dissolved after the season, but a group of businessmen from Detroit got the NHL expansion franchise and decided to buy the rights to the Victoria Cougars players. And the NHL franchise would retain the nickname Cougars because of that. Chicago took many players from the West Coast themselves to fill their expansion team. The Detroit Cougars would be called the Detroit Falcons and then the Detroit Red Wings. Players who would play for the Victoria Cougars were Hall of Famers Hack Fowler and Hap Holmes, both goalies, Frank Foyston, Frank Frederickson, who was this superstar winger from Winnipeg, Clem Laughlin, Harry Meeking, and Jack Walker. So they won the 1925 Stanley Cup, which was amazing and all that. The players were Jocko Anderson at center, wingers Frank Frederickson, Frank Foyston, Wally Elmer, Gizzy Hart, Harold Meeking, and Jack Walker. They played with 3 defensemen only, Clem Laughlin, Gord Fraser, and Harold Halderson. And the goalie was Hap Holmes. When they won in 1925, the angled ring with the words "Won by Cougars Victoria BC 1925" was added between the original bowl of the cup and the original first ring of the base. Everyone was included on that ring. So yeah, it's weird how Victoria, British Columbia ended up being a Stanley Cup champion. I don't know that. But remember, this was before the old stuff. When they folded, basically it wasn't a challenge cup anymore, and the NHL retained the rights to the cup.
So the 1925 Stanley Cup Finals saw Victoria take on the Montreal Canadiens, the Flying Canadians, Howie Morenz and Aurélien Gilliatt. The Habs were actually substitute NHL representatives, as the final series to determine the NHL champion didn't happen. The Cougars are the last non-NHL team to win the Cup, as the Western Canadian Hockey League folded after 1926, giving the Stanley Cup the NHL's de facto trophy. In fact, the Cougars would be the last team based west of Chicago to win the Cup until Edmonton in 1984. And this was the last time the Stanley Cup Finals were played in Western Canada until Vancouver qualified for the 82 finals. It was huge. Victoria ended up being in the regular season in third place, but would beat Calgary in the championship series to have a chance to face whoever comes out of the NHL. Like third place, that was kind of weird. Oh, Victoria took down Saskatoon to qualify for the final against Calgary. Meanwhile, Montreal also finished their regular season in third place. They would take on the Toronto St. Pats and beat them in a 2-game total goal series to move on to face the Hamilton Tigers, who were the top team. And yeah, I know everyone says Hamilton didn't have an NHL team. Yes, they did. Back in the 1920s, they did. They had a team. However, Hamilton players wanted more money. They wanted compensation because the NHL season went from 24 teams to 30 teams with the addition of the Boston Bruins and Montreal Maroons in the NHL. Reasonable, but unfortunately they didn't get the compensation. And all the Hamilton players were suspended de facto. So basically Montreal was given the NHL thing. Montreal had some very good players. Had George Vezina, Sprague Clayhorn, Silvio Mantha, Billy Boucher, Howie Morenz, Aurélien Gilliatt, Odie Clayhorn, Billy Couture, and a few other players. So anyway, with the demise of the Pacific Coast League, the Stanley Cup playoffs would be the Western Canada champions against the NHL champions. Best of 5. You had to win 3 for that. So they would play all the games of the 1925 finals on the West Coast because the Cup finals rotated between the East and the West. The Cougars would go on to win the first 2 games and put Montreal on the ropes, which was shocking. But anyway, that was in the biggest shock in the world. Montreal would beat Victoria 4-2 in Game 3 before losing Game 4 on March 30, 1925, 6-1. George Vezina played all the game, obviously, as Frank Frederickson put up a pair of goals to win the Stanley Cup for the Victoria Cougars. It was amazing and all that. That's huge. In fact, Frederickson and Halverson were the first players to win both the Olympic gold medal and the Stanley Cup. Frederickson and Halverson were part of the Winnipeg Falcons that won gold at the 1920 Olympic Games, Summer Games, which was strange enough. But yeah, the Victoria Cougars, their legacy will still grow. I mean, non-NHL teams will never get the Stanley Cup, but they could say they were the last. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adu.